Hi everyone, welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm GoLocal News Editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for joining us for the 4 o'clock News and Politics Show. We kicked off with Carl Waddenston with VIBCO. Welcomed in Shatea Woods with Teach for America. Now a familiar face, Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Thank you for coming in today.
Good to be back, Kate.
I appreciate it. We're at the end of November here. December's going to fly by. Before you know it, we're going to be back in the 2019 General Assembly session. And the center just put out a very interesting release calling for a constitutional amendment to codify legislative reforms that have been made. And so talk with us, walk us through the thought process here, why you think this is necessary.
Well, actually, legislative reforms that haven't been made yet. You know, a lot of people believe that how we make the sausage legislatively in Smith Hill is in the hands of too few powerful people, the leadership in the General Assembly. And we've agreed with that, and we've backed some reform efforts by Jared Nunes, who's soon to be former rep from the Coventry area. And there's now talk about trying to do this again. I don't know that it's possible this year. We agree with those reforms. I just don't know that it's doable. But what might be more doable is if we take a longer term, more permanent look at it. Because remember, legislative law passed this year can be changed next year or in 2 years. But if we're serious about changing the structure of the way we make the legislative sausage, then we should put that into the Constitution so that some power-hungry future leader can't change that. So again, it's our way of saying, let's be serious about this. So we think a constitutional amendment is the way to go. It might even give the Speaker and other leaders, knowing that it's a few years away, rather than, boy, if we vote on it next month, it's going to immediately. So it might even give them more room. I don't know. We haven't talked to leadership about it, but we think it's a pretty interesting idea. But it's a serious situation that should be handled seriously.
And one of the things that you really are looking at, I saw in the release, is, again, that power that especially the Speaker's position holds. You want to see the Assembly be a more democratic body, things that come out of committee to get to votes. I mean, do you think that, again, you can get a good reception to this up on Smith Hill?
I don't know. I think we're actually encouraging. See, right now, lawmakers really aren't representing their constituents. By title they are, but really it's the Speaker's agenda, it's the Senate President's agenda, and they are pretty much pressured to back it. So is that really representing your constituents? We suggest, now we don't agree that every bill should get a floor vote. We don't agree with that premise that some are making, because some bills are just ridiculous and shouldn't have any time. But every bill...
You often have the bad bill of the week.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, but those are submitted bills. But we believe every bill should go through a robust committee process. The committee should vet out the reasonable bills and bring those to the floor, and they should reject the bills that shouldn't be. So we think more committee power, giving more committee, not waiting, Mr. Speaker or Mr. Senate President, can I take a vote on this bill or not, that the committee chair should have a little more power, and the committees themselves. We think lousy bills should never make it to the floor for a vote, but any reasonable bill probably should get through the committee, but that's up to the committee to decide. So that's really how we'd like to see the shift from the leadership a little more to the committees.
I know that was one of the bullet points. Talk with us a little bit about other reforms that you would like to see, again, codified.
So along the same lines, how we appoint chairmen of committees and other leadership positions should be a little more democratic. I mean, again, you think back to what happened with the toll vote. There were a few Democrats who voted against tolls, and they were immediately, just at one person's whim, pulled off of their committee assignments. I'm not sure that that's how lawmakers themselves want it. They don't have any choice in that. So we should have rules about how those positions are appointed or unappointed. We also think this end of the session cattle call, the suspension of rules, which means that you don't have to go through the normal committee process. You don't have to go through the normal floor vote debate process. We just bring these bills up and vote on them. And you know, we do them by the dozens upon dozens upon dozens in the late night hours, all compressed within a few hours. That's not democracy. So those two things, how we suspend the rules. I mean, you've got to have a suspension of the rules process for real emergencies, right? If we're into World War II or something, or World War III, yeah, we got to have a way to bring things immediately up that are important. But also ending that cattle call.
And it was interesting because obviously of the big races this past session, the focus on the Speaker in his district against Steve Frias, garnered so much because by lieu of the position being so powerful. When I asked about your thoughts on appetite up at Smith Hill for it, I mean, do you think that the Rhode Island electorate has an appetite for it, again, to see some of the power, again, not necessarily in the hands of one person?
I think so. I think there'd be broad support. I think most voters are uneducated about it. It's kind of a nuanced thing, if only for the wonks like you and I know how it works, and others. But yeah, I think once people understand that you're distributing power to the rest, to your elected official, particularly, not just to one person from one district and one Senate district or one House district, then it has to get public support. But I also understand how difficult it would be for a Speaker or the Senate President to agree to these things, like next month, right? That's the way it works. You'd have to, well, in January, you'd have to agree. So our constitutional amendment idea it wouldn't be on the ballot until 2020. You could even set an implementation date of 2022 if you wanted to, right? You could do all kinds. It would give everybody a lot more room. We're thinking long-term, big picture, not just, and if I could, I'd like to point out one other thing in our release. We're not trustful of the progressive left who are also pushing for this. We may agree on the goal here, but our motives for this goal, we want it for long-term good government purposes. They want their leftist agenda to be brought to the floor and brought to floor votes this year. And that shouldn't happen either. They're doing it for very selfish, agenda-driven reasons, not for good government reasons. That's my view. And I'll challenge them. And I've been criticized for calling them out on this because we apparently kind of agree. But if you do support it, then support our constitutional amendment idea, because I don't trust that if you get power, you're not going to flip the rules back your way. So
Very interesting, strange bedfellow politics potential there for, again, this constitutional amendment. But let's tack to one of the other things that the center has been working on, and actually some news that GoLocal has been breaking here this week. Union membership, union politics here in Rhode Island, the issue in South Kingston of an NEA labor leader being elected. Now, back in 2017, legal counsel writing about an 8-page letter basically outlining what probably couldn't be voted on, and that was pretty much, they said, most of the committee's business. So let's walk this back a little bit. The Ethics Commission has not been requested to give an advisory opinion by Ms. Markey, but they basically said there is no conflict for a public union official to be an elected official.
who said that?
The Ethics Commission didn't, it wasn't a ruling, it was a response to a press inquiry because they haven't been asked to make a formal ruling yet. But
Well, the United
let's take
States
the 10,000
Supreme
foot
Court,
ladder.
right? The United States Supreme Court said in its Janus ruling last year that everything a public employee union does is political, inherently, 100%, because it either involves public policy or public money. And the union stands and its members stand to benefit from every single decision. So it's an inherent conflict of interest because it's inherently political, in this case what the National Education Association of Rhode Island does, of whom this South Kingston School Committee woman who was elected to the school committee, she's an executive with the NEA of Rhode Island. So she has almost a permanent, it's not just a bigger list, it's almost everything she would have to recuse herself from. Now, what kind of representation is that? I mean,
there was some from her response was the voters had spoken and they knew that that's what they were getting, and to the victor go the spoils.
So that's true. Yeah, but you got to remember this is a school committee race where you got a number of people being elected. Maybe 3 or 4 are up for election this year out of 11 people. It's not like these.
One-on-one, yeah.
It's not like these issues get exposed during a campaign like you would in a normal one-on-one race, where I could say, "Hey, nobody voted." I bet you most voters in South Kingston had no idea that she was a member of the NEA and that had thought through whether or not that's a conflict. So for that reason, it's going to create a mess up there. Listen, first, do I have a minute?
You have. I'll give you 5.
So let's go back. The Janus ruling, which means that no more government workers can be forced to pay their union if they don't want to. Okay, no more. That used to be the case. You had to pay one way or the other. Now you don't. And you can't suffer any recrimination if you do decide to opt out. They know they're going to lose membership because of that. In Rhode Island, because of a campaign we launched, mypaymysayri.com, because it is their pay and it should be their say whether they pay or not, we're already seeing hundreds of people downloading the forms to request out. Now, and that's going to grow into the thousands, and the unions are going to lose some of their financial power and some of their political power. So to combat that, what happened in South Kingston is specifically one of the things our national association warned us of that would happen. Among other tactics they would employ, they said the unions are now trying to get their people elected into public office so that they can manipulate and control policy and money, because if they're going to lose membership and money because of Janus, we got to find some way to bilk the taxpayers over here to make sure we maintain our power. And that's so you got to understand what's happening here. It's not just a conflict of interest. It's really part of a corrupt national and local strategy to make sure the unions maintain their political power. And I don't think many voters, if they know that, would approve of that. I really don't. So that's why I'm either calling for her to resign, because I think any decision that school committee makes can be tainted as illegitimate because she's illegitimate on that board. It's not her fault, it's just inherent in her job, or there should be a recall election. Now, I don't know what the rules are in South Kingston for a recall. You may have to do something criminal, I don't know, but one of the two, the voters should have a chance to reconsider this, or she ought to save everybody the trouble and step down, because she's not going to be able to vote on a lot of these issues anyway.
Do you think a lot of a lot of statewide attention will naturally be paid on what votes are taken and what votes she recuses?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. She's drawn a lot of attention now to South Kingston. South Kingston doesn't want it. I doubt South Kingston teachers want this. I mean, this is making the union look like the corrupt bully that they're often accused of. It is a corrupt bullying tactic, and teachers don't want that stigma on them. They should be asking her to step down, even though she's their team leader per se. You know, none of us would want a team leader who's tainted that way. So I think teachers should stand up and make their voices heard and say, listen, you ought to step down. This doesn't look right, and it makes us look bad. They're just public servants trying to help our kids. But yet now we got somebody trying to manipulate the taxpayers up there on the school committee, and it makes teachers look bad. So if you're a teacher out there, stand up for yourselves.
Well, one of the interesting things in South Kingston, they had basically some charrettes to look at the legacy project. So it was to look forward at the future of education in South Kingston, the population of the students that has diminished in the last number of years, including closures of schools. Now, I was able to watch a little bit of the school committee meeting last night
So you got bumped off,
the
huh?
live stream wasn't quite functioning. But they did make mention of the fact that even if they get the maximum 4% a budget increase that is allowed by law from the town council, their budget is still 2.2 million in the hole. Again, with these budgetary issues, I mean, that's the number one issue that the school committee is facing. And so school closures were identified in that letter from the council as to again, a potential.
And I think that's why Miss Markey ran on there, is to make sure there are no job losses as part of that. I mean, that's essentially ripping off the taxpayers, but the unions don't care about that. That's what they do. They rip off taxpayers. In fact, can I tease something for you? Probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks, we're going to release a report that's going to show the cost of unionization in our state. And we, by a conservative estimate, if we just paid public employees the normal market rate, we've done a lot of research on what that would be for all kinds of jobs,
Okay.
not this excessive premium that we pay, and all other things that unions force taxpayers to pay for outside of personnel, that your property taxes could go down at a minimum of 12%.
Well,
All right, so that report is coming out as soon as we go through some more iterations of it.
okay, it sounds like we have the next opportunity to have you back on live. You heard it here. So Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity. Appreciate your taking the time to come in here into the studio. And don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back with our final guest here in the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center.